Hi, Kat. This is
Hi.
my sister. I'm so glad to have you here. How are you?
I'm so good. I was just like outside. Our cat just started to go outside and he almost really excited to be here. Thank you so much, Stance Elements, for setting this up for us and Joe
Yeah.
this conversation. It is so important that we have this conversation. So I'm really grateful that we're able to have it today.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I think you know this, but just to like presence for those of you watching, um the reason like I think that you were a big part of the impetus of me wanting to have these conversations. We had this like surge of people coming out about particular like predators and people who have been abusive in our community. And that courage for people to speak up has created a lot of accountability and shifting and an opportunity for us to just create safer spaces. And so I was like, Black Lives Matter. I don't want to take away from this very, very important conversation, but I do think that we need to address this particular thing that's really, really present in our community. And so I thought of you immediately, and I was like, we got to talk to Kat. Like, I want to introduce her to everyone. You're so like, just your spirit is so bright and wonderful. So,
So yes, my name is Kat Cleandro. I use they, them, she, her pronouns. I'm a gender nonconforming queer dance choreographer, teacher, educator. I actually grew up in the more concert dance world. I was studying ballet and modern jazz up until I was about 22. I graduated with my degree in dance, my bachelor's of fine arts from SUNY Purchase, which is a really intense um, dance conservatory, very based in like European whitewashed dance, very ballet, modern based. And it was after I left college that I was like, there has to be more out there than just like running around barefoot. And as much as I love, do I have this like love for modern dance? It didn't connect to my soul the same way that I would watch these street dancers and these different dancers, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole realm of movement that I have no idea about, and
yeah,
that to start studying different stuff, different languages of dance,
forms. Yeah.
different forms, and I just fell in love with that. So I started to really kind of just like see those little pieces and be like, ooh, this feels a part of me. So yeah, I teach at Broadway Dance Center. I was teaching at Millennium and Movement Lifestyle when I was living in LA. I'm currently in Brooklyn, New York. Um,
Yeah, it
and
looks like a Brooklyn wall. Like your wall behind you looks like you live in New York. Like that is a Brooklyn, that is a New York brick wall. But like, what
I,
do I know? But like, it just looks so New York to me.
how gay am I, right? Like the exposure, really, this is actually my partner's apartment, but basically live together. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. I have been working actively in speaking up about the sexualization of children for, I want to say,
Mm.
about 5 years now. I was judging dance competitions to make money, and I was watching
That's
these.
right. You say the thing. You say the thing.
I was losing my jobs because I would refuse to judge children dancing, hypersexualizing themselves on stage. I'd look
Mm.
and screaming, and I would put the mic down. I was like, I refuse, and I put my head down, and I found that I was
Mm.
a lot of resistance, and a lot of people were like, just shut up and do your job. And it's,
Yeah.
but this is my job. So um
Mm.
a lot of,
Humanity is our job, right?
right, taking care of each other is our job. And
Yeah,
you
I
said
feel
with
that.
uprising of racial injustice, it's not new, it's just being recorded more and it's more obvious now. If it wasn't obvious before, I hope that people are aware of it now. And really, after the murder of George Floyd, I had this feeling where I was like, nothing matters anymore except for standing up for injustice. Like, my
Mm. Yeah.
how many people are on my bio, how many music videos I work for, nothing matters anymore except
Yeah, like F my number of followers. I have to do what's right. Yeah.
right, nothing matters. So it really reactivated this courage in me, because I was silenced so much about speaking up about children being sexualized, and I was like, no more. Like, I'm watching this movement and I have so much dismantling to do in my own body, but
Hmm.
sexualization, objectification, exploitation, that is where I just feel, and that's how we met. And I was like, Yo, pick me. I want to work with you, please.
Dope. Yes, yes. Thank you. And I'm still getting used to introducing myself with pronouns. So when I introduced myself, I didn't do that. So my apologies. I am she, her, and I'm actually sitting with and researching a little bit about non-gender conforming because I just have always felt certain feelings of physical expression. So I'm looking into that, but currently cis, right? And yeah, and I also want to say that I'm on Paiute land here in Las Vegas. So that's also something that I'm trying to add into my introductions. A friend of mine, beautiful woman named Isis, said, you know, she's wanting people to introduce themselves with also naming what land that we are on because it should never leave us that we are on stolen land. So but I know that a lot of people watching, I mean, I guess I don't know obviously who's watching, but I'm sure that like we all kind of could use a sense of like where we're at. So I don't know if you have any like maybe like statistics, numbers, kind of like factual data for us to just begin this conversation, because it's not going to be about that, but like if you have any kind of resources like that where we can kind of get a gauge for like where are we at, like what's going on. And yeah, I think even in the dance community, because we're such like free spirits, we might even tend to think that we don't have these issues within our community. So I'd love to just like start with this starting ground and kind of just talk about like, let's talk facts, let's talk numbers and see where we are. So do you have anything about that?
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna share some information from RAINN. It's spelled RAINN, stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite organizations and where I'm going to be sharing some statistics from today. It is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization. So it's a little hard to find statistics, especially when it comes to queer and trans people, especially non-binary, gender non-conforming people.
Mm.
But I'm going to share what I found today, and I think we can just go ahead and assume they're going to be higher today in 2020. RAINN also has a hotline where you call and report and get help as well. So if anyone's looking for help there, I do know that Dance Safe is also in the process of creating this work as well, where you can report to us. It's an organization that JoJo Diggs and I love very, very much. Oh, huh? Um, every 73 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Younger people are at the highest risk of sexual violence. 15% age 12 to 17, 54% age 18 to 34, 28% ages 35 to 64, and 3%
Whoa.
5 and over. Women and girls, I'm going to go ahead and say that, are experience sexual violence at the highest rates. 1 of every 6 American women has been a victim of attempted or completed rape in her lifetime. That's huge, especially when we're thinking about children. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the statistic is 1 in 4 young girls is sexually assaulted. So when we're educating and we're teaching in a classroom, you've got, you know, a room full of 40 kids and they're all identifying as females. That's 10 kids in there that is potentially probably
Oof.
victim survivor of sexual abuse. In 1998, an estimated of 17.7 million American women had been victims of attempted or completed rape. That is in 1998. So imagine how much higher that number went up. Men and
Mm.
boys are also affected by sexual violence, something we don't talk that much about because of this deep ingrained men must be tough, boys can't cry, boys can't talk about it. The reports go so much lower. It is such an unreported statistic. So they did a study on male college students at risk, and it said males ages 18 to 24 who are college students are approximately 5 times more likely than non-students of the same age to be a victim of rape or sexual assault. So people in
Crazy.
um, terrifying. In 1998, 2.7 million men in the US had been victims of attempted or completed rape. That was in 1998. 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. Transgender students are at a higher risk for sexual violence. And when we talk about race, Black women are much, much, much higher. The statistics are much higher for women as well. Yeah, so these are some Native Americans are also at the greatest risk of sexual violence. It's shared here on RAINN.org. If anyone wants to go search it as well, RAINN.org. I urge anybody watching today to do your own research. Don't depend on people to teach you. We have the gift of technology and the internet. Let's take advantage of that and like really ourselves. Sexual violence in the military often goes unreported. A lot of we were talking about this earlier too, and something I want to share. A lot of people, you know, working through the Dance Safe are like, well, what about false accusations? Like, what about fake reporting? The rates of unreporting are so high. So many cases go unreported for so many different reasons, and you know, the actual percentage of reports that are like are false. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this study looks like a little bit older, but it said like it was between 2 and 6%, which is so tiny. When you're talking,
you mean 2 and 6% that are false? Jeez.
Millions of people who are being sexually abused, sexually assaulted, violence. That is the number is this big of false accusations. So,
yeah. So much information. Thank you for that. Thank you for like just like knowing it and having done the work. I appreciate that. So, you know, I have just recently, like we just started the Dance Safe together, right? And so I've been hearing more like conversations around people's experience around this, you know, really more than I ever have in my own life, because even if I've ever talked about it with a female friend of mine, who's a survivor, just a quick note that you actually taught me, like, or I think Ashley may have taught me, but like never to say victim versus survivor. Yeah, so if I've ever even spoken with a friend who was a survivor, you know, she would say like, oh yes, I'm also one, but we wouldn't really like get into communication around it, right? And so something that's like more new for me is just hearing how many women felt like in that moment they just shut down and froze. There was like even like a hindsight of like, why did I freeze, you know? And so me being me and kind of diving in and saying like, okay, what's underneath and how can we transform this from within? Not that it is the survivor's fault, I'm not saying that, but like how can we start to identify more what our boundaries are with touch? Like I've even heard women say they've been recently setting a boundary when they're like walking through, you know, a crowd and like a guy puts his hand on their lower back, like they now have this immediate response that's like, that's not okay for, you know. And so how do we just as people, everyone, begin to help realize our boundaries and be able to name them faster, and put strength to them and empower ourselves. And again, like it's worth me saying twice, it's not anyone's, it's like not the survivor's fault, right? But like, how can we find these boundaries within us to feel a sense of strength and self-knowing?
You know, it's World Mental Health Awareness Day, if I'm not mistaken, and it really of how, especially in America, how uneducated we are on mental health and how educated we are on, you know, what is mental health. Mental health is creating boundaries. What is a boundary? You know, misogyny has taught us that as women, you know, we are under men and like I can't disrupt a man, right? So I can't, if I say yes in the moment and then I change my mind and say no, then how dare I, like, you know, he's already riled
up. I led him on, or yeah.
I'm actually a survivor of sexual assault, and it was something that happened to me as well. We were feeling each other out. We were feeling it until it got too far. I fell asleep and I said no, and I said no, and I said no. And as I fell asleep, he decided to take advantage of me. And I think the issue is we don't teach our children the word consent. And consent doesn't mean just saying like yes or no. Consent also means asking our children to dance, our children consenting when they're, our brains aren't developed until we're 25 years old. How do we expect a child to consent to dancing sexually? How do we expect a child to consent to sexual activity? We also very, very, very sex negative world where rape culture is like totally just like, it's just pushed to the side. Oh, that happened to you? Yeah, me too. Wow, whoa, like, no.
Yeah.
Messed up that happened. And I think like what people need to understand, and it's not just women, it's not just men, it is non-binary, gender non-conforming, it's all people need to understand that the minute you say the word no, that's it. There's no conversation.
Yeah, it's a complete sentence.
It's a complete sentence. And I think if we teach people that like, I don't owe you, I'm gonna curse, I don't owe you shit. This is my body. These are my rules. If you don't like, back up. It's not my problem that you're upset. This is my body and I have autonomy. I am able to make choices based on what feel good to me. So I think the study and education of healthy mental health and what it looks like to practice boundary setting. And like, I mean, I'm sober. I'm like, I remember being in the bars and like a man grabbing my waist and like me turning around and being like, I would pop off at this guy. My partner at the time was like, you can't pop off at a man like that. What if he hits you? And I'm like, that's not fair. Like, I'm allowed to stand up for myself and you're not allowed to touch my body unless I allow you that chance. So
that's right. Yeah.
Giving each other courage too. You and I talk a lot about this, but like being courageous. I'm not afraid to stand up for myself because I came in this world by myself. I'm going to leave the world by myself. And what I do while I'm alive in here is really like based in my own, self-worth and self-value.
I love that. Yeah. I had a friend who just did this like 2-day course and he was talking about how like we are here on the backs of our ancestors. Rupi, has written about this, and a lot of people have talked about like just being here on the backs of ancestors who have gotten us to this place and carrying out the message and carrying out the work for them. And that's just been a powerful thought. So it made me think about like what we do when we're on this planet. Like it's bigger than, it's from us and it's bigger than ourselves. And yeah, we have every right to love. Like we're both like hugging, like love on ourselves and lift up this world. So we just talked about like how to find boundaries, and I think like that's really brilliant because Jojo digs, I literally dig deeper. Like I'm always trying to find like what is the root of things and how do we approach it from the impetus, the source, right? The iron and nickel of the core. But let's flip that on its back and let's address survivors who reflect on things and maybe wonder if it was their fault. Let's address that it's not their fault, and let's address, how to move through that healing in an empowered and self-loving and in a healing way. How do if anyone here watching, has ever asked themselves, was it my fault? Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I am so privileged and I'm lucky to be able to afford therapy. It has been so helpful along my healing journey. I thought for so long that it was my fault. I led him on. We were drinking. I was underage. Maybe I shouldn't have worn such a short skirt. When I went to report it, thank goodness my parents were supportive, and I had a rape kit done the next day that came out positive. And, even after a positive rape kit, like the prosecutor and the attorneys were still like, well, maybe you shouldn't have been drinking. Maybe you shouldn't have worn such a short skirt. Maybe you shouldn't have led him on. So to anyone listening, it's easy to think that it's your fault because this like idea of self-harm sometimes might it might feel safe, but I want to remind you that it's never your fault. It's not your fault at all. Even if you led them on, it does. Autonomy matters the most. It's not your fault. The journey of healing is a very, very, very rough one. I think this idea of spiritual bypassing and spirituality, and it's like, oh, self-love is bubble baths and healing is this beautiful journey, and I'm growing from a seed into a flower. How like, no, healing
It's
hurts.
freaking messy. Yes, it
Oh,
hurts. Yeah.
ugly. It's painful. You get
It's the ugly cry. It's the
it's ugly. It's blaming. It's self blame. It's allowing other people to
shame, guilt. Yeah, moving through all of that, grieving. Yeah.
so much shame, so much guilt. So, to anyone listening, I want to remind you that your healing journey is your own. It is not up to anyone else to tell you how to heal. If going online and telling your story on a live Instagram feels healing and empowering to you, then more power to you. But I just want to remind you that the journey, it starts from within. Healing starts here. And as I've begun to do my healing and my work, I've actually begun to forgive myself and forgive my abuser. And
Mm.
I can't expect an apology from him. I can't ever expect him to apologize for what he did or the pain he caused me or the path he took me on. So after that happened to me, my path, I became an addict. I had an eating disorder. I was just a really misbehaved young person. I was very promiscuous. I can't blame him for that. I can't blame myself for that. It's what happened. It is what it is. I like to think like, I was put on this earth, and the universe sometimes chooses for me for a very specific reason. And I think the reason was so that I could help others later. But
Mm.
is really our own. And, whether it starts with going to therapy or support groups or doing your own personal reading or finding a friend that you can talk to or, sniffing essential oils or taking bubble baths or going on long walks. And, the healing journey, forgiveness begins here first. And then, we can begin to put ourselves back together. It's
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so messy. And like, this past year, I've really worked on like decolonizing my brain and dismantling and, you know, um, yeah, just looking at my inherent bias, my inherent racism, those kinds of things. And yeah, it is extremely just, it's like, yeah, it's like where you've built your identity from and like what you like, it's what's made a lot of your choices. So you're like uprooting that, and it's like the death of ego, right? It's like the death of something. So yeah, it's really, it's wow, yeah, it's messy work, and it's not linear. It's not like, okay, I finally healed from this, I'm ready to move on. Like in 3 more days or 3 more months, 3 more years, you're going to see something on TV and it's going to trigger a thing, and you're going to have to work through this other thing. um, so we have this little question box. So I just want to invite people to ask any questions that are really like on their mind or that you want us to address into the question box. And someone asked a question that I think there's a handful of them, but somebody asked a question that I think is good for us to talk about. And they talked about like, what is the difference between Black feminism and how feminism shows up? And I know that's not exactly our conversation, but I think it's important to name it because we are in this moment of Black Lives Matter. I'm white, you're white presenting, right? White expressing. And so I think it's important for us to just even be able to name it here that like white feminism is a problem. It's a problem to the movement. And feminism is not the same, like my rebellion, my liberation does not look like the liberation of women of color. And so I don't want to get too into it, right? But I do think it's important to just address it and distinguish it and know that, yeah, like what I've experienced is really different across sociocultural experiences. And so I have to, if I don't have inclusivity in my feminism, it's a bunch of bullshit. So absolutely, like, I think that's really important to name. So thank you for asking that. Is there anything you want to say about that before we move in? I know, like you had mentioned earlier, like the numbers are disproportionate, but is there anything else that you want to say?
Um, I mean, Black trans women are at the top of the list of violence, like the top. And I just want to say, like, if your feminism doesn't include trans people, then you are not a feminist. If you're
That's right.
feminist, includes anybody. Feminism isn't about hating men. Feminism isn't about
That's
hating.
right.
Feminism is about acknowledging our power, acknowledging our worth, and uplifting those around us. And if we're
Mm.
not listening and amplifying the voices of Black women, and especially Black trans women, your feminism is bullshit. And like this turf, like these turf feminists, these white feminists who are like so just like self-centering and so fragile, like it's not about you. It's not about like, I read comments on Instagram, I just want to be like, it's not about you. Like
Yeah, like the toxic positivity, right? It's so harmful.
spiritual bypassing, it is something that like I didn't realize I practiced until I did start studying anti-racism when Soul I started
Mm.
anti-racism, and I was like, whoa, spiritual bypassing is some white feminist bullshit. Like this is some real shit. Like, oh, I can just sniff an oil and everything's gonna be okay. Like, no.
Stay positive, good vibes only.
Was fun. It was like mental health and mental illness. Like it was like this thing. It was like somewhere in the mirror, like a white woman pops up and says, "Say you love yourself 3 times." Like, no, like that's not real. Like I can't like mantra my way into loving myself. Like loving myself is a practice that also requires me honoring the experience of others, because if
Mm.
I'm hurting. If the collective hurts, I hurt. If you have violence against you, then because we're humans and energy existing in one space, I am hurt too. I don't understand your story, but I can empathize and understand that you are hurting. And in my opinion, that's what feminism is all about. Feminism is grace. Feminism is power. Feminism is this like ability to stand up with your shoulders back and your chin held high and be like, I'll fight for you. I'll fight for you, and I'll fight for me too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Equity versus equality. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. I think it's important, like, to really name it because I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So that's a whole side topic. So I don't want to get too far down that like rabbit hole because I could really like go off. But like, yes, we white feminism, like, is we white women are like, it's like really a slippery slope because we're rebelling and but we have to understand like there's really like a different experience and include that into the experience, which we're going to be addressing in our third interview today with Sydney. We're going to be talking about like visibility, needs, rights, blind spots for our privilege, and like how to be grateful for certain things that we don't even know that we don't know about it. So yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. I'm looking left because of my list of questions here, but so I want to talk a little bit around like I know that you have like really for me, refreshing views on how to have a conversation around it. Like, I do feel like, we're having more conversations lately, and I think like that's really helpful. And I think sometimes it kind of turns into like the tea. And so, who you are to me is like this very unique balance of like, you will say it, you will say the name, you will call it out, you will create accountability. And it's not about that, it's about healing and education and safe spaces. And I feel like it's either usually like someone who kind of wants to talk about the tea and like center themselves or just center like, what happened? Or it's like someone who's like, well, let's just all really and be really nice about it, or whatever. And so I feel like you're like smack dab in the middle. Like, let's say the name if we need to, if that helps, if it's effective. And also, let's not make this about shame. Let's make this about healing and education and restorative justice. So I love that about your approach to these conversations. And I feel like, oof, that I wish that was more contagious. So can you just talk a little bit about how you navigate conversations around this, what your experiences have been in, I guess maybe I don't know if you've ever approached it in a different way and it didn't work out, but just sort of speak to your experience and what you feel like really authentically uplifts us as a people.
so it's funny you say that. About 4 years ago, I was so triggered. I was judging Dance Moms competitions at the time. And I was so triggered. It was beyond the trigger. The firework went off and I was bursting in the air. And I took it to the computer and I blasted an educator. I'm going to put this person in a quote because I'm still not convinced that you're an educator. I'm convinced that you're ignorant. But that's beside the point. Blasted this person. I was shamed for my tone, and this person was not held accountable. Still to this day has not been held accountable. What I learned from that situation is that when I shame someone, which I still do, I'm like not perfect. I do not know everything. I have, you know me really well. I have moments of like projection where I am working really hard, but I have moments of wanting to shame people because I realize when I'm hurting, I want you to hurt too. And I realized along the way that shaming people and calling people out and canceling people doesn't give an opportunity to learn. You have put this person in defense. They are going like this and they don't want to hear anything. So I've tried to take what I've learned from this and start to have more loving conversations that are based in accountability and healing and uplifting. I want to just go ahead and share a conversation I had the other day, and I'm going to say his name. I had a beautiful conversation with Brian Friedman the other day. We called each other. I was like, look, I want to talk to you about some shit. I want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. And he was like, I hold myself accountable. He was like, I have done some shit in my past. I am fully aware. I have
Wow.
met, I am accountable. And I was like, holy shit, like this is the example right now. And it wasn't me. And I told him, I was like, I'm not trying to rip you down. I don't want to rip you down. I want to lift you up because I think that you're amazing. And I think when we have our conversations from that place, it gives everyone the opportunity to be uplifted because, like I told him, I'm not perfect. I choreographed to the box the other day and had kids in my class, and I was like, oh, but also, both were talking about the fact that, I don't think that it's important to hide kids' eyes, right? Like it's not important to cover their eyes, and that's kind of the issue I have with some certain organizations that do work with sexualization of kids. I feel like they're trying to hide children, but like The Box, for example, right? I love this song, and it talks about drugs. It talks about this. This is someone's experience. Why aren't we like discussing and honoring that?
Mm.
Maybe it's like seems troublesome to you, but that's your privilege that you don't have to do that. So let's honor the experience. Let's talk about it. Let's educate each other. Let's uplift each other. And let's have the conversations about what's actually going on in our world. Like people are making music and art. I don't feel the same way about the song WAP. I just don't. I don't personally appreciate it. But like, other things in music where I'm like, damn, this is really like, wow, this is an experience someone is having. And like, why aren't we talking about that? And just, confronting people and having those conversations like, hey, I see you. I see that you're doing this, or you choreographed to the song WAP and you have 600 million kids following you. Like, do you feel powerful doing that? Yes, you do. Okay, then you know what I mean? But I think sometimes like people think that struggle is a reality show because of the society we live in. We see other people's struggle as like entertainment, and it's really not entertaining to see people struggle. And I just think private conversation goes so much further than calling them out on the internet and being like, you did this, how dare you. It's like, no, I'm not better than you, we're the same. So like meet in the middle and just try to do better. So shout out to Brian Freeman because I love Brian and I love him even more after this positive conversation. I left the conversation feeling empowered and inspired. And I think that's what having difficult conversations is all about. Just empowering each other to do better.
Yeah. Yeah,
Kind of
absolutely.
tangent, but like,
No, no, not at all. No, I think it's great. Like, I think having, I mean, I think it just speaks to the mindset of like, yeah, this is really rooted in education. I've definitely talked to, um, someone who, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was like a forceful assault, but like did take advantage of his positionality and things like that. And so, looking back in hindsight, like, wow, like I wasn't really aware of what I was doing. I was really insecure. This was like a way of me feeling powerful and confident and abusing that power. And, but having those conversations is where that person gets to like actually reform and transform and then like not do it again, but like versus like shame, you suck, you're a terrible person. Oh my gosh, I need to go and do other things to make myself feel better. So yeah, I think it speaks to all of that, and I think it's really important, just as like a even just like speaking against the system. Like our system has a terrible judicial system. It's rooted in just racism and cancel culture and killing off things. And yeah, so it's just, I think even the accountability is imperative, but like restoring and reform is like where the true transformation happens. So I, yeah, it was amazing.
It's like,
Um,
what
yeah,
if we what if we all believed that no one is replaceable and no one can stay relevant? That, you know, people I love and adore and look up to, like we all have the opportunity to learn and do better. It's not about like this limited amount of space. There's space for all of us, and none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. And it's not about that. It's about honoring experience and honoring the opportunity to learn to do better. And especially, you know, we do live in a society that is so based in influencing. And, you know, I don't know if you saw the movie Cuties yet, but it was really, there's a lot of issues with that movie. We could do a whole lot of that personally. One of the things that I did appreciate about it was it brought light to how powerful influencers are. And that was one of the conversations I had with Brian, that I had with Trisha Miranda, who also had a beautiful conversation with her. These are people that
nice.
we idolize in I want to say in my world, you know what I mean? Like people I've grown up, I mean, Brian has taught me so much as an educator, and I don't know, just to like hear him and to be able to speak kindly and respectfully, like it gave me so much hope for the industry, because I haven't had those same.
Mm,
I've tried to have conversations with people who get so defensive. They're like, well, and it's like, oh man, you're not even allowing. Oh man, gendered language. Oh person, you're not even a space to just like, you know, through our brokenness, we can fill ourselves with multicolored glue. Like it doesn't have to be
mm. And
condemned.
sparkles.
Yeah, with glitter and love, and like I believe in the power of love. I do believe that love uplifts us, and when we start turning it with like hate, blame, shame, guilt, people don't have the opportunity to learn. So I think anyone out there listening, keep having those difficult conversations, but come from a place of gentle love. Like when you can have a conversation that's based in that, that's like, I see you. I see that maybe you don't see how you're hurting people, and I'm trying to help you because I love you, and I hope that you would do the same for me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
That's really
absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, and we're in our 11th hour. We have like about a little over 10 minutes left because we're going to finish at 55. So just letting anyone know if they have a question, we don't have comments on because we want to filter and keep the container safe and just like focused on this very delicate, loving conversation. So if you have a question, you can just go to the little question mark box and put it in there. But I would like for you to inform people about the Dance Save, like where they can go to, like if they have experienced something, even if it was years ago, you know, to courageously be able to report it there, why, what we're doing at the Dance Save, and just like how, or any other resources that you like really fully believe in. Just basically like taking action steps. Okay, so like now what do we do from here? How do I learn? How do I report? Um, yeah, what can we do as a community to take action steps in the whole thing of it, whether we're a survivor or we want to, like maybe some men are here and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know these numbers were so crazy. How do I do better? Let's talk about action steps on how to heal, reform, report, all of that stuff.
so. The Dance Safe, created by JoJo Diggs, is an incredible organization that I am just so in love with. We are truly in the beginning stages of creating this baby that I think that we've kind of combined our efforts on, and we have a great team that we're building. Basically, the Dance Safe it's putting healing at the forefront of the movement, right? So through healing and education, we can prevent these things from happening. I think these things happen because people are uneducated. People don't realize that sexualizing children can their mental health, can lead to sexual abuse along the way. So I think what is so important along with the healing and the accountability is the education of what I can do to do better. I really firmly believe the word activism is a verb, right? It has the word active in it. I personally do not think anymore that it is enough to just say like I'm against this and just be like black square on Instagram, like no, your black square doesn't mean shit. Like, what are you actually doing? What conversations are you having? What next step are you taking? So the dance safe, if you need to report, if you want to just have a conversation with someone and be heard, if you need guidance to therapists, if you need guidance to support groups, if you need guidance to legal advice, if you need just a friend to listen to you, I urge that you reach out to us. We want to help. We want to help set a standard in the dance industry. Like, no longer working and has not been working. So we're going to set the new standard. I like to think that the Dance Safe is a very, very courageous place. We're going to say it. We're going to say the stuff. Even if we get letters of defamation and slander, we're going to creating a list of abusers that goes this long. And, if you are ever about to jump on a job and you're like, I'm curious about this person, message us. We will openly tell you any information that we have, while legally being safe as well. First and foremost, our effort and our direction is like with the survivor, like is what they need to embark on that healing journey. Like you were saying, filing a police report. I mean, I believe in complete abolition. I think we need to completely rip down all of the walls of that system. It doesn't work. It works for some people, but it doesn't. And
it's certainly fucking corrupt.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, how many people don't report abuse because of police? I have heard about how police treat. I mean, obviously we've seen police brutality. If you haven't seen police brutality, wake the fuck up, because it's happening. It's been happening. But it's also brutal when you're reporting sexual abuse, sexual assault. You can be treated so horribly. So I think what I love about the Dance Safe and the direction I really am envisioning us going is we're going to be that place that can kind of like take ownership of our own community. Maybe abolition of this greater thing is maybe a little bit beyond our reach, but why don't we start with our own community first?
Yeah.
Let's shift the changes there, have the difficult conversations, share the information, support.
Yeah, well, and we had a question from someone named Vicky Smalls, which I think is like still just like really in line with what you're saying. And they asked like, do we think that this will become normalized conversation? Are we going to continue to have these difficult conversations? And so, like I think like that's what there is to do, is to normalize having difficult conversations, because, and I think this even goes into how we, maybe some of us, view predators. Like we think they're going to look like really mean, creepy people, and so we're just like shocked when it's like the charming center of attention alpha male. We're like, what? And like the women in the community are like, yeah, he totally this is like person we all kind of know about, right? So like I think also just removing any preconceived notions around like how a predator is like a bad person. Like, it's like they can show up literally as anything. And so in order for us to, I think, like really repair, we have to say the thing. And that's why toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing is so dangerous, because we cannot work on healing something unless we actually acknowledge that it's there. So yes, absolutely, Vicky Smalls, like this is the mission, is for us to normalize difficult conversations. As a white woman in Black culture, I'm personally working to normalize conversations about Black Lives Matter, all Black Lives Matter. And, I'm willing to lose jobs. I'm willing to lose friends. I'm willing to lose family. Like that's where I'm at with it. So
And
yeah, absolutely. I think I just want to say this last thing, sorry. But I also want to say, like, I don't know you. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know how I can support you. But I think it's like there's the dance safe and there's this and there's this and there's this. So it's part of this like ongoing conversation. So too, I just want to like empower you and encourage you, like if it's something that you feel needs to be more present, like every single one of us is a leader, like do that thing, empower it and reach out to Kat. She's so knowledgeable. She's like working on the inclusivity aspect, which I think is also so important. So yeah, let's normalize the difficult conversations and like talk about the elephant in the room.
yeah, pick,
Yeah. And yeah.
pick a lane. There is so much activism like that needs to be ignited right now. Whether you want to talk about this or that or this or that, pick your lane and commit to it. And then watch how they all go in together. Racism, sexual abuse, transphobia, homophobia, we're all working together here. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
was, normalizing the conversation about sexual abuse. You start talking
Yeah.
children who are sexually abused, that compassion, that trauma that you feel, it's hard, it's difficult. Jojo, I've called you sobbing many, many times where I'm like, I can't do this.
Yep.
It is very hard work, especially when we're talking sexual abuse, but
Yeah.
something I our community and I want everyone to listen to. Stop, stop, stop saying, well, they're nice to me, I can't imagine that they would do that to you. Stop. Just stop saying that. If someone discloses to you that someone abused them, do not, you're victim shaming them by well, that, I mean, how could that person do that? They did. They did. Believe them until there is, and don't ask someone for proof. Well, can you prove it? Well, can you prove that it didn't happen? So why don't we just, like, as a community, believe, listen, honor? Someone asked a question, what do I do when I see my abuser at like work or convention? Incredibly difficult. And I don't honestly have an answer for you other than to continue down your healing journey, work on your forgiveness. If you can avoid those moments that trigger you, then try your best. But we are going to learn, existing in this world, how to confront our triggers and how to work through our triggers and how to, remove ourselves from those situations. But I see this so much where it's like, oh, that person is an abuser. No, they're so nice. Yeah, well, yeah, they are. That's called grooming. Have you ever researched the word grooming? It's usually people that are very, very nice and get you to trust them.
Yeah.
It sucks when you hear about people that are abusing other people that are friends of yours. It sucks, but
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Absolutely.
do it. People are
Yeah.
racist. People are abusers. People
Yeah.
are
Yeah. It's deep. We learn it. We don't even know we learn it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I just want to like give a clear directive for people. If there is someone that you've been kind of wanting to report something that's happened to you and you just want to make sure that people know about it, you can contact the Dance Safe. It's just handle the Dance Safe. And basically what we're doing is we are taking reports. We are creating like she said, a very large database. And what we want to be able to do with this thing, we're documenting every single person. You can be anonymous if you want to. And that way, when like a convention, maybe a crew, like, when we're talking about like an ideal culture, they can contact us. We're going to be working in tandem with other organizations to see if there have been any allegations, like safe word, right? Like if there's any allegations against this person, and so that we can begin to change the standard for what is acceptable. Vicky Smalls said that she's been like having these conversations and she's really happy to see other people having it. So if you want to volunteer and put your foot in to the work, you're welcome to contact us. Of course, we're not the only people, and it's really important that we're not centering our voice. And even when I created it, it was because someone said like, we need this, but I don't even feel like it's mine. I just was like, okay, I'm not afraid of my character being like defamation anymore. Like I'm here to serve. I'm old, I'm saying, like, you just get to a place in life where you're like, it's all good. So yeah, so if you want to report, if you want to contribute, and also if you want to get, you know, education, to just learn and do better. Like all of that resources over there. We're going to be building like contact information for people when they're in studios to read, like if they see something or they experience something, they can contact us. We're going to have an honor code and all types of things. So we just want to do things better. And again, we're a part of an ongoing conversation. There's so many resources out there. So find one that really works for you. At the forefront for us is healing and accountability and inclusivity. So that's like really, really forefront for us. And yeah, I love you, Kat. Is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off today?
I was gonna say, like, to anyone still listening and to anyone who sees this after, this is a community effort. This is not up to not up to anyone. If you see something, you have to say something. Your silence is vital. You can no longer close your eye. I mean, you can't turn your head anymore. It's there whether you choose to see it or not. And you being quiet about it is violent. So please use your voice. We have, seen that with our voices, we have removed people from jobs. There's a predator out there right now.
Yeah.
At studios, but he's been fired from all the conventions he teaches at because we have emailed the
Progress. Yeah.
It's up to you as well. It can't just take 1, 2, 3, 6 voices. It takes hundreds of us. We are power in numbers. Change begins with me. Change begins with you. Change begins with all of us. So let's embark on
Absolutely. Yes, let's heal and let's uplift outside of our own pathways, right? So inclusivity. Yeah. Word. Thank you so much, Kat, for being here. I'm going to drop off. I'm going to post this. I'm going to put our handles up. If anybody would like to donate to Kat, I will put that her Venmo in there as well. Please contribute. It's like one little thing at a time. So if you have $1 to give $1. Like this is like emotional, and that's not why she's here. She didn't ask me to do that. I'm like kind of like putting that out there, but like,
if you want to donate, pick a small business, and instead of giving me money, please donate to a small business, preferably Black, because that's what I would do with the money that you donate to me. So take donations and put them somewhere else, please.
Cool.
Please.
Cool. I honor you. Yeah, absolutely. Once again, thank you so much to Stans, Daniel, for giving us this opportunity to share and uplift. I'll put all the information when we post it. And thank you, and much love to everybody. And thank you for being here. All Black Lives Matter.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.